Well, like you got a boy.
I got a boy.
You got a boy.
Yeah.
And he's the perfect little boy.
It's true.
Imagine if I was a girl.
It's difficult too. No.
How are you?
I'm okay. I don't like it.
Okay.
I don't like it. I didn't wake up in time to do class this morning, and I felt like I threw off my whole life.
Yeah, it's all over.
My whole life went off kilter, is what it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an extremely strange problem to have, but I've been doing workouts with this lady she's like a New Yorker, and is kind of like how, in some ways, no, that's bullshit. There's something about her way of being that reminds me of my way of being.
Mm.
She's kind of a dick, and it's like hurting my feelings at this point. I know.
I thought you liked that.
Not when it comes. I don't know. Like anytime anyone asks her for like a modification, she's like, if it hurts on your knees, then like sit on your butt. If it hurts your butt, like stand up. In this way that's like. And then we were doing lunges or something yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy was like, should my knee touch the ground?
Yeah.
And I kind of knew what he was saying. Yeah. She like thought something. She's always misinterpreting people's comments.
Okay.
So that's also really not that helpful. A, because she doesn't get any of the jokes I make, and then I was like, I can't coexist with you. But not only that, when people are like we went from squats to lunges or lunges to squats, and so we were doing maybe squats when she read the message about the knee touching the floor, but it was clearly.
I understand what he meant.
About lunges.
Yeah.
And she's doing squats, and she was like, neither of your knees are on the floor. And I was like, that's not what he said. So then, especially when she said neither of your knees are on the floor, I was like, I can't. So I quickly wrote, no, it doesn't touch the floor.
Yeah.
And then she saw my comment.
Yeah.
And she was like, I mean, it can touch the floor. There's nothing wrong. And I was like, I think the question was like, does it need to be?
Yeah.
And maybe I misinterpreted it, but she was then like correcting my comment. And I was like, I meant that it doesn't have to touch the floor in order for you to be doing the lunge.
Yeah. Wow.
Just much miscommunication.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it's a little bit like someone was like, oh, I can't do this because of my knee. And she was like, we did jack squats before. You can do those fine, but you can't do this.
Oh, no sympathy.
Which, again, like, I was going to say, like, it reminds me of how I would do it, but I certainly would not act like that, actually.
No.
Yeah, it's like, it goes, one of the things I like about her is that it's not cleaned up. So she's, like, cursing openly and is, like, it's very polished.
Okay.
It's not like doesn't feel like a product, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
But then I also think like that doesn't mean you have to be like mean to people,
right?
Or like just like aggro and like somebody will ask the same question over and over because obviously there's like people coming in and people coming out and whatever. And instead of just like ignoring it or whatever, she's like, I know it's annoying to hear me say this over and over again, but like. It's because people keep asking me over and over. It's just a lot of energy.
Why is she? It sounds like she doesn't like questions.
Yeah.
Doesn't like any kind. It's just like, shut up and do the work.
Yeah, she doesn't like questions, but she also doesn't like jokes. So then I'm a little bit like, wait. And I don't like that she doesn't give good advice. Like we were doing some kind of crunches, and one person was like, "This hurts my neck," which is a really common thing.
Yeah.
And she was like, "If this is hurting your neck, it means you're not using your core." And I was like, "That is accurate, but not helpful."
Also, wait, I have a question to that because I think that if it's hurting your neck, is it because you're not using your
Is this
core?
about neck muscles, neck workouts?
Yeah, sort of. No, because like I have this problem too. But could it be that you're just holding where you don't need to, and that you are using your core, but you're just like adding extra effort where it doesn't need to be?
That's possible.
So it has nothing to do with like whether you're doing the exercise right or not. It's just like you're adding something that's
possible.
unnecessary.
That's possible. Yeah.
Right.
The thing that's frustrating to me is that like if she's not like, then the way to say that is to be like, try engaging your core more.
Yeah.
That's just a more constructive way, I feel like, to say the same thing.
Yeah.
But she was like, if this is hurting your neck, you're not using your core. And I was like, the end? I almost like typed a suggestion to the person, and then I was like, I can't get involved. I'll struggle with these. Because like, there actually is something you can do to help your neck. Press back into your hands with your head.
Yeah, that's just it. Like I actually think that from a like personal experience, how I would handle that and how I think I've been handling that is like you practice doing the exercise without your neck as much as possible.
Yes.
You know? And so your body becomes like situated that, oh, we don't have to do that. That's
right.
enough. Yeah.
But a more immediately in the moment way to address it is to push back into your hands with your head. Because you resist the tension which is going this way and straining your neck in this direction. So if you push back into your hands, it actually equalizes you.
Mm.
That's what somebody needed to tell her that. And it's so silly that the like person whose workout it was like, I don't know. I was just like any of the responses to the questions are remotely helpful.
I feel like to be a good teacher, that's part of teaching.
So she's not a teacher, clearly, and it's interesting because I just saw an article today about how all the did I send it to you? Mm-hmm. Okay, I almost did then. About how all the free Instagram fitness things are like screwing up actual trainers.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
And a bunch of people, like so they had some like Pilates lady who has a studio. I've been like worried about the woman whose studio that is. The Pilates studio. Made by.
Really?
Yeah. I thought about it like several times. Because they weren't open very long.
No. I was thinking of that today too. Like all those I was thinking of like businesses that like just got off the ground.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I can't find it right now, but yeah, basically it started with this narrative of this woman, this like Swiss lady who runs a Pilates studio, and obviously everything ground to a halt. And she was like, I took weeks to get everything off the ground online, and I sent a bunch of messages to my regulars after like a few weeks or something, after having figured it out on Zoom.
Yeah.
And basically it was like crickets. And she was really kind of confused because hers is like an established business, right? And in part it's because everyone cannot believe how many things you have written.
I know.
I don't know if I have this many items on my phone.
I never close things. Okay.
Oh, I always do. Anyway, and one of the things she like posted about was to say like, listen, the workouts that the free workouts online are probably made by people whose job it is to create content.
Mm-hmm.
So they make their money by selling leggings and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Not by like helping you with your lower back issue.
Right.
And that's what a teacher is. So it like, of course, this girl doesn't have any helpful suggestions. Because I don't think she's just like she's just jacked.
Oh, okay.
like a lot of fitness people are just in really good shape, so they like, I guess, know a lot about exercise because they do it a lot.
Yeah.
But not all people are created equal in the sense that maybe some people are doing it more automatically. Maybe some people have had to troubleshoot a lot. If you haven't had to troubleshoot a lot, you might not know a lot of solutions to a lot of problems that commonly people have. Or I don't know, like, if you're not very detail oriented, I don't know if you get worked out for 5 years, like how much information you'd retain. Like, I feel like I've learned a lot from Ray, but maybe there's people who aren't listening, really. So who can get to a place of physically very fit, but don't know a ton about troubleshooting? I don't know. That seems unlikely to me.
Yeah, because you have like a natural interest in like how something works.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seems like for you to get something, you have to know like the ins and outs of it in a way. And I'm sure other people don't need that. It's just like, oh, this, then this, okay. And
Yeah.
so then for them to try to like regurgitate that information,
but they have to have had the same problem.
Yeah.
And if they didn't, then it's like,
I don't know, just do it. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like it's a very strange energy, but like, I think that's probably what comes from doing workouts with like fitness influencers or like, I don't know, not teachers.
I mean, that's also like a question of all this. I was actually thinking of this today, I think. Like all this like at-home workout, it's really easy to be doing it wrong.
Yes!
And be hurting yourself.
Yes! And that's the other thing, is that she doesn't really give any, and I'm singling her out because I honestly haven't, it's not like I've seen a bunch, but many of them are through like some sort of sponsorship, so it's like kind of controlled.
Yeah.
They're representing this brand, and so there's like a whole level of finesse that is annoying, but also keeps it kind of even. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't, until I read this thing today, think about like how different it is to be following someone who works out from someone whose job it is to teach working out. It's really different. Because even the people who, work with Gymshark or whatever, the most they can do is like a little bit of color commentary, which is what they call color commentary.
I thought I did. What?
I mean, I didn't know it until I started watching sports.
Oh, okay. What is that?
There's like the commentary during the game of like what's happening, the narrating of what's going on and who is doing what and how many points have just been scored and what's happening. But then there's color commentary, which means like, oh, so-and-so, the nephew, of course, of head coach, blah, 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 who, when he was with so-and-so, won 14 championships, and they're both left-handed. That's
okay.
So, like, they can throw in, like, interesting little things here and there, but it kind of seems like they only know their experience.
Right.
Rather than being prepared for a lot of different people's experiences and bodies.
How do you become a fitness coach or trainer?
Trainer?
Yeah. Like, is there actually?
Yes.
Like, obviously you can go to school for like physio or like.
No, like there's certifications.
Right. Okay. Yes. Just like yoga teacher training. Okay. But there are presumably people who have never done that and then just like started being like, yeah, I'm fit, I'm a trainer.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. And if for whatever reason there's just like a word of mouth thing, or like, I actually was like wondering if Ray had a certification, not for any other reason than that he's been doing it for so long, that I was like, I wonder if it just like wasn't a thing whenever he started. I'm making him sound really old. Well, yeah, there are certifications and like levels of experience and all these different like modules that you can add to like enhance
I do have to say, like, I like the idea of the unpolishedness of this, though.
Yeah.
Because the workout thing that I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
is so
The neon thing.
like
The neon
it's
one.
so positive.
Yeah.
Positive. It's like,
Well,
yes,
this
you showed up today. Like, and granted, like a lot of fitness classes do that.
This
It's
lady
like,
is not positive. So if you want a break from whatever you're doing,
you showed up today. Love yourself. Like, you won't, like, come on, just give yourself over to it. Like, yes, be like the best version of you. I'm really like paraphrasing, but
are you?
there's definitely a lot of that.
Today she was like, my lady was like, you keep doing mediocre shit. You keep literally.
That, like, I hate that though. That makes me want to be like, fine.
I know,
And I
but,
will give you my mediocre shit.
but who pays for that choice?
I know. Yeah. Are you gonna keep doing it or find something else?
No, it's been kind of hard to find. That's the other thing is that if it's just for everyone, like it's really difficult. Like Ray's makes my life really difficult because he like knows how. And a lot of these things are for like anybody on Instagram.
Yeah. Right.
So
it's kind of catered to. But it's not really catered to anyone.
I just sort of do things and then I'm like, did I do anything? And I'm not talking about cardio stuff so much because I don't do like guided. I've never done cardio on Instagram. This is so weird. Where are we? What world is this?
What world is this?
I've never done cardio on Instagram. So it's all like people doing stuff with bands and weights and body weight.
Yeah.
And they're trying to like figure it out on the fly. And it's also supposed to be, it's geared for people who don't have any equipment. So there's kind of like a limit. It's just a limit to how useful it is. I don't know.
And like, it's a whole world. I think I'm gonna try something else after this month. That's almost up.
A whole month?
Yep.
You've been doing one thing for a whole month?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very surprising.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You're like a variety shopper.
This has a lot. So I've been using this. I'm just gonna name it. It's called Obey, and it has like most of the classes are only a half hour. But like, yeah, they offer like a free 3-month trial, and they offer a lot of different things like cardio and dance and Pilates and strength and sculpt.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like in that way I get to variety shop.
Mm.
And actually it's been really fun for like the strength and sculpt things because I do not do that traditionally.
But you've been doing it?
Yeah. Like those have been the ones I actually really like. Because I actually do feel like within a half hour that I get something out of it. And I'm surprised how difficult some of them are. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go try something else for a while. So,
yeah, there is.
I want to say that like Made by Pilates might have said they were gonna like try online streaming or something like that.
I've gotten something from the Metamorphosis people too, and those are that like crazy kind of Pilates that I was obsessed with.
Yeah.
Just have a hard time getting my mind around how you would teach like a reformer. Obviously, it's not a reformer class, but studios that teach a reformer, I don't understand what they would be doing online.
I guess just like back to basics.
Math.
Yeah.
Which then like I mean, then definitely don't charge me $30 for the class.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got something from Metamorphosis that was like $150 for the month, and I was like, "What are you guys doing though? Are you bringing a megaphone to my house?"
Yeah, like why is Pilates more expensive than other classes?
Because of the machines.
Right. And I thought that, yeah, what are you paying for?
Right. I heard that 24-hour fitness is considering declaring bankruptcy. ClassPass has lost like 90 something percent of its.
Yeah. This is like, so there's kind of like there's no Postmates in Canada, but there's a company called Foodora, and they're shutting down, which I find really surprising, because you would think that at least would be kind of safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad.
My friend's show like aired yesterday or today. I was like, oh,
That's good time.
Yeah, that's good timing. Like, it must be so reassuring. Even DMZ like wrapped shooting right before this stuff went down. Yeah. Like, it must be so, it must, like, those people are really lucky. The ones who, like, just got those, right, the last little sliver. And then now get to be like, oh, sweet, I have something like coming out.
Yeah. Well, that was just a part, right?
Oh, DMZ, yeah. I just meant like.
Yeah, no, to have a full season that gets to be released
now.
Gold.
My dress is falling off. That's what keeps happening, by the way. I need to tighten this. Help. Looks like I've shrunk since last summer.
Oh, really?
I know what you weighed last summer. How is it that I find so much blonde hair in my room is my question.
What?
Like, when I'm working out, I'm like, what? How is this possible?
How is it traveling there?
I have no idea.
I
have no idea.
I don't know how there's still hair on my head.
I don't either.
It should all be gone.
It really should. It's all here. That's where it is. You must have a hell of a lot of hair. That's the jackpot.
So shave it off.
And then you'll have even more.
Yeah.
Shaving your head makes your hair grow stronger.
Someone looked this up. I'm like, what?
No, the shaving your head thing is definitely true.
What?
They do it in hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years.
I don't know why. I don't know what cutting it, but I know that like shaving it. Oh, imagine if we shaved half the like that. That's when I know we're really going to be in a different place. If I'm like, yep, there's time enough for this to correct itself.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I thought you were going to go in a different direction. Are you going to have regret if you don't do something crazy during this time?
I don't do regret, so no, but that's like the only negative thing I don't do. I do guilt, I do shame, I do lots of other things. So probably not. But I do have this thought of like, oh, it's 1 month that's already gone by that I could have had an insane haircut. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know how long it's going to be.
Exactly.
this thought about again, like the idea of driving to the East Coast has come up again.
Really?
Yeah, like it went away,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, nope, this is especially because there was some self tapes, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It seemed like maybe I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But then now it feels like enough time has gone by that I'm like, it's actually because Ali reminded me somehow of all of these records that I have in DC.
Oh.
For years, the last 5 or 6 years, I haven't been able to figure out how to get them here because it's expensive, but they're also they're heavy, but
Yeah.
also fragile.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to like ship them, but there's been like no solution. So part of me has been like, maybe I should just go get them.
You could. How long of a drive is that?
It's like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. But you would stay.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't just pick up
No, but
things and be like, bye guys.
yeah, it's kind of weird to be like, what am I doing?
Yeah, like what exactly are we
What am I
reading
doing
for?
this for? Yeah.
Have you read anything about somebody sent me a thing about the industry opening up a deadline article. I haven't read it because I thought it was going to stress me out. But yeah, that whole thing of like you have to be where the work is, that whole idea of like that happens with actors in general. They're like, I can't go anywhere or do anything because I'm going to miss something.
Yeah.
That is like gone to a whole next level right now. Because we're now not only waiting for, like, we're waiting for the opportunity for there to be opportunities.
Yeah.
For there to be an opportunity. Like, it's like 3 levels. Not 3, but. And that feels really strange to be like what exactly are we waiting?
Really? I have no idea. I don't think I'm waiting for him.
I kind of am, in part because of one of those self-tapes.
Oh, yeah, because, okay.
So in my head, I'm like, is there some... Wait.
But that doesn't matter where you are, right? Like, at this point, yeah, it doesn't matter where you are.
I think it only matters in as much as, like, being able to do a half-decent tape.
It's true.
And I think that they're probably a bit lax about the quality of tapes at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
More lax than usual. I'm so traumatized that crossing off was closed. I don't know what happened there. What do you think happened there?
I don't know. Rent.
You think they've been in business for 20 years?
It's the only thing I can think of. Because, like, what would it really matter? Like, why would you have to close? And the only thing I can think of is, like, you can't keep up with your expenses.
I mean, I was kind of wondering if one of them, like Amy, was like, maybe one of them has been thinking about retiring and then this just expedited it.
Maybe.
But they're like young enough that I was like, maybe one of them got a different job. I don't know.
Mm.
This is fascinating for people, I'm sure.
I know that there's a theater in Toronto that everyone works for. That they basically shut down because they couldn't afford the rent.
Geffen is sitting pretty. I got a fucking email being like, we're doing a one-man show on Zoom, guys. It's
What?
like, all right.
Okay.
Yeah. I wonder if I had said yes to that play, if I would be in Maryland. Like,
Oh my
screw.
god. You would have been there right now? Or you would have been there
so.
in March?
I think so. there would have obviously been no job.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, great.
You'd probably be with your family.
But that, yeah, which would have been the whole reason to do it in the first place, so I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, this is very weird. These are weird times.
Yep. And I think they're gonna stay there.
So then part of me thinks I should shave my head and drive to the East Coast.
I know, maybe. You should finish One Piece first.
There's no question. There's not even a question of that.
But yeah, like that's like I kind of feel like you can get away with it. If you shaved half your head, no one would really question it. They'd be like, "Yeah, that sounds about right."
But that's like a hard wig to make happen, isn't it? Or maybe
It's
just
not
get
a problem.
extensions.
It's like,
How do extensions work?
let me tell you, lots of tape.
Tape?
Mhm.
But if I had like nothing,
Like you're talking
here,
permanent, right? Not like clip-ins.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, if I didn't have any hair right here, and then suddenly I needed to have hair right here, what would be the
I
options?
think they would do. Okay. Unless it had grown out a bit, because you need like something that you can attach it to.
I see. It's probably a ugly stage
If it grows out.
when you have just like, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it's all right.
I just assume that I don't have what it takes to pull off any awesome hair shit. In part because I feel very incompetent about my hair. I'm not like good with it.
What do you mean?
I'm not like, this isn't like a giant insecurity, okay? But
Mhm.
in general, I'm like, oh, I know how to like dress up and like whatever. And I know how to like put on makeup.
Mhm.
But my hair, I'm a little bit like, who did this here? What am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
I feel a little bit like a dad
Huh.
with a daughter who's like never had to do her hair before. I kind of don't like know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think that with stuff like that, you have to be a little like savvy.
Or at least like
I don't think you can
creative.
roll out of bed. Like I don't think you can live like how I live.
People who do hairdos, even like the perfect curled hair,
You do hairdos, don't you?
not really. I kind of feel you with the like not really knowing what to do with my hair. I'm shocked that I still don't really know how to use a curling iron.
I do in theory. I know the theory.
Do you have the patience to actually do it? What is
No.
happening there?
I have no idea.
Yeah. And then all the like braids or the up like girls like that. I'm like,
Yeah, people who are like doing stuff like
Totally.
French, like
yeah.
a whole real thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what is happening because this is literally what I've got. This is my repertoire.
Yes,
basically.
it's good.
It's a ponytail,
It's true.
and then this,
top knot, yeah.
and then nothing, and then down.
Yeah. And you straighten it sometimes
If I'm like,
for an audition.
yeah, if I'm like
Yeah.
doing something,
Mhm.
but that's like a special event.
That's about it. You know how to blow dry your hair.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes, that I know. That's a thing I can do.
Like I can do that,
You can do it.
not well. I can't do the perfect blow up.
What is the perfect blow up?
You know those girls who are like they blow dry their hair and it looks like the salon.
I think a lot of them are using the curling iron.
What? I don't even just mean like because it's got the right curls. I mean like it's like that smooth straightness.
All the
through.
flattening iron.
No, like you can have that with a blow dry.
I feel like I could do it. But it also depends on what kind of hair you have.
Mm.
Like mine straightens very easily. I don't know what feature of hair that is.
Mm.
Maybe it's like whether your hair is fine or not fine. I think mine's fine.
Mm.
Which is different than thick and not thick.
Wait, what?
Thick and not thick, fine and not fine. From what I imagine,
Mhm.
source definitely unknown on this.
Mhm.
Thick hair is that you have a lot of hair,
Oh, not the actual hair.
not the hair. And then fine hair
Mhm.
is the actual hair.
Oh, I didn't know this.
So maybe you haven't got fine hair.
No, I don't think I did.
Because mine, like, at the slightest suggestion, would be like whoosh.
Did you ever do? You did pros, right?
What's that? Yes.
The customized shampoo.
Yes.
I think I took the test once.
Mm-hmm.
I did not purchase. So, no, of course not. It just went in a cart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to.
Did you know about the? I think it's from that where it was like, "What's your scalp part look like?" And it shows different scalps. And
I think
like
the
some
point of
people
that was
have
like-
it like really far apart, and some people really, really thin.
That's like how much hair do you have?
Is it?
Yeah.
That's so weird. I never even thought about that before.
That's how much hair do you have.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
This is fascinating.
I know. It's great.
I think this is maybe the most boring conversation we've
I
ever
think
had.
we need to cut our hair. I think we're fine.
I'm perplexed that you today want to like look at this too.
Okay.
So, to be honest, why is it scary? Your hair's so long. We're not talking about shaving it.
Mhm.
We're talking about like nothing. We're talking about a whole bunch of nothing. After it's over, you're probably going to be like,
Oh,
did
we
do
do
we do
anything?
it?
That wasn't dramatic enough. Yeah.
let's do it.
Let's really do it.
And then you'll be like, have you ever seen Friends? You'll be like, Rachel's hair. I've always wanted that hair.
Wait, can we talk about this for a quick second?
Mhm.
What's up with that haircut?
Loved it.
It's not a good haircut. Do you disagree?
There was something about it that I think caught on and then never went away. And I want to say it was layers.
Probably that's it.
Like
It
there's
was
something about it.
What has she done?
Yeah,
And
because it was irrational, her haircut. Do you remember it?
it was very round.
No, it was round, but then like had a skirt.
It's not a good haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not.
you're right. It has a skirt.
Yeah. So it was like so it was like concave and convex at the same time in the same place.
Yeah.
And I think that was very compelling for people.
Oh my god.
I think people just had more logical hair before that.
Did they? Because
I
like
don't
before
know.
that, weren't we
The
talking 80s
80s.
hair? That's logical hair.
Well, logical in that, yeah, it's big.
It was one.
It was one
shape.
thing. It was big.
Yes. Yes.
So like that's like a kind of sense. But then like round, but then pointy, but like in, but then out, like short and then long. I think it was just it was like confusing.
Mm-hmm.
People liked that.
Everyone wanted that.
Yeah. So let's recreate it for you.
Great.
It would be very funny looking.
It'd be so bad on me.
You would have to wear makeup every single day.
I would actually.
In order to
Because
like,
if I didn't,
you'd look very confused. You'd look like you were like in an asylum.
Probably.
Unless you put on makeup.
Yes.
I'm not sure where I'm getting this. Just
I think this
feeling.
is accurate.
you
Yeah,
think?
I think so. I think she probably looked like she was in an asylum when she wasn't wearing makeup.
Yeah, probably. I think also she had good hair.
Which is
A factor?
no, but what's good hair?
A lot
Shiny.
of it and shiny. A lot of it and shiny.
Shiny.
My hair's shiny. There's not that much of it. I talked to Lauren about it once, and I was like, She was on the shed.
Mm.
She was like, yeah, it's like 1,000 something. And I was like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, no. I don't know what, like, I would need a whole new head for that amount of money.
It's also
Like, I want to be a completely different person for that amount of money.
You would be.
Like, I need a new head. Everything.
Yeah, it's also like $1,000, and then you have to pay probably like $300 at least for
To,
every
like-
reapplication. And I think it only lasts about 3 or 4 reapplications, and then you would have to pay $1,000.
Christ almighty. It would drive me nuts also to, like, put my hands in my hair and feel something there.
Yeah.
Oh, that would bug me. That would
Washing
bug me.
your hair.
How would you even wash your
You
hair?
have to like wash it around the tape.
How do I get extensions without getting extensions?
Clip-ins.
You know an awful lot about this. Clip-ins. But, like, I'd need a shit ton of them, eh?
You could get like one piece if you wanted.
Be purple and golden.
Yeah, I don't know how much clip-ins are.
Interesting. Guess what? The mushrooms and everything arrives tomorrow.
Oh, do they know what's coming?
I've, like, alluded to it and they've, like, pretended not to. They've been like, yeah.
Yeah, do they watch? Can you kind of give it away?
That's awesome. Very possible.
Hmm.
You know what?
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be rewarding nonetheless, guys.
Oh, definitely.
So Ishan's hair's getting really long and everyone's freaking out and they need, and I'm like, we need a haircut, and I'm like, it is full hawk time.
Yes, it is.
Don't you think?
Oh, it's so.
I completely mean this. I'm not even slightly kidding.
Yeah.
I was like, no, just give it up.
Yeah.
My mom did it a little bit because he, like, laid down and she did something with his hair that was like made it go, like, upwards.
Yeah.
And then he, like, sat up and I was like, like that.
Fully. That's just it. Like, now's the time.
Yeah. I think, like, I don't think that Naresh would like it. I think he wants him to look like a good little boy.
A little prefect.
A little prince. Not like a little boss.
No, I think we could all get weird. I think we're all entitled to get weird during this time.
So how are you gonna do that?
I do not know.
Speaking of this time,
Yes.
I got fat today.
What?
Yeah, literally, I was like, oh, there's all the Oreos that I've eaten for the last several days with my repercussions.
Like you found it on your body?
Yep.
What?
I was like,
Where?
here. It's right here.
It's your little cookie pocket.
Oh, it's right there. I was like, no more. No more. No more nothing.
I feel like I ate a lot today. I was like, no, I'm eating again. Okay. And it was really hot today, and I was like, we need ice cream.
Yeah.
I did not need to go to the store. It was not an emergency, and I went to the store.
Which one?
Fresco's.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not waiting in the sun at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and you know what?
What?
Like, not everyone needs to shop at Trader Joe's.
I need to.
I know you do.
I haven't been once.
I think about the almond butter.
Bam, 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 dun, 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 dun.
Someone. Why aren't more people doing Trader Joe runs? Probably because they're limited by how much you can purchase in one go.
Yeah. You know, I never realized how much milk I consume.
Really?
I felt like I was buying like boxes and boxes of milk. Haven't I had like?
I thought I was like,
unseemly
okay, she's good for
cartons.
months.
Yeah, no, it's gone.
Whoa.
And I was supplementing it with that rice milk this whole time.
Yeah.
Gone. So I'm gonna have to go to the store tomorrow
Shoot.
and buy ice cream. And, do you want to read what happened?
We should read. Not a lot happened yesterday. We were with Napoleon, I think, the entire time. Is that right? Yeah, I think so. So we were with the French. And Tolstoy was educating us on how we could think.
He stopped the school bus and he took us the fuck to school.
We did.
And then we were like, wait. And then he like stopped
You'd be like,
the school
so
bus.
you would think this is the place where you learn things. But really, you'd be a fool to think you're capable of learning anything.
Yeah, so then he like stopped the school bus. And we were like, wait, I thought we were already on the school bus. And he was like, get in the fucking school bus. And we were like, ooh, okay. Then we got in and he fucking took us to fucking school. And then we're like, okay, we're on the way to school. And then he fucking stopped the school bus. And he's like, get in the school bus. And I was like, I really think we're already learning. And he was like, no. Sometimes I wonder why I'm still talking.
Do you? No.
Fuck.
Because I just wanted to watch that in Marvel.
No, I mean, do you
Marvel.
ever wonder why you're still talking?
Why am... Oh, you're like, I know why I'm still talking.
No, I knew that you would say something like very kind about me, like.
Do I wonder why I'm still talking? I wonder why I'm talking ever. So I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm like, oh my god, I get to say something. Oh my goodness.
Is it Easter? I don't know what that means. What's Easter?
Yeah, it was that. It was exactly that. We were on a school bus, and it was just basically Napoleon has a cold. And he gave out all these orders, and none of them came through. And you could think that all of that happened, that like all the shit didn't happen because Napoleon had a cold, and that's why the battle was so disastrous. But no, you would be wrong to think that, because that has nothing to do with nothing.
Yep. And whatever else you're thinking, that's got nothing to do with it either. And then the thing that you aren't even thinking, that's also got nothing to do with it. The unknown unknowns had nothing to do with it. The known unknowns, nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
The known knowns, clearly nothing to do with it.
Nothing. Basically, just shit happens.
Somebody made the mistake of saying to Tolstoy once, what if the whole reason the French lost that battle is because he had a cold?
And Tolstoy's like, some historians might say, yeah, and he's like directly taking. Imagine there's just one historian that Tolstoy really doesn't like, and this whole book is just an angry retort to him. Yeah,
I feel like he was pissed at one historian and one doctor,
and one German,
and I was like, I'm gonna fucking take all these fuckers down with one novel, and then he was like, started writing, and he's like, okay, got the. Put the history in, but I have to write more because I haven't figured out how to get a doctor and shame himself. And then he kept writing, and he kept writing, and he kept writing. And he got the doctor, and then he's like, there haven't been any Germans! So he had to write this long ass book.
Okay. Yeah. So now he's got all those. Why is he still writing?
Maybe there's some like grudge we haven't uncovered yet towards Batman or
Towards a Batman.
towards a Batman. I'm listening to this really fugly podcast as usual, but this one is about two community theater actors, and the guy between shows lured someone to up the attic above the theater and murdered them and like dismembered them or something like that, and then like did his next show.
And did his next show?
Yeah, and they're obsessed with like continuing this metaphor, the stage metaphor. So it's like when he was about to like out himself, the woman's like, and that was when the final curtain fell on David so and so's final performance. And then in the interrogation, he's like, "What do you want me to say?" He's like so fake and empty. It's really weird. He's like, "Okay, I saw her. I saw her and she had 2 holes in her head. Is that what you want to hear?" And the cops are like, "No, why are you talking like that?" Literally, the cops repeatedly are like, they would just be like they were being actors, and we kept being like, "You're not doing a good job." Like it's really obvious.
Great. Oh my
Isn't
god.
it?
Yeah.
It's something kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
Also, community theater. Like I can't think of a more innocuous.
It's so sweet.
Yeah.
It's like, let's do our town.
Yeah. They're like, let's do it because we love it.
Yeah.
So like, how is there an overlap between those people and like an axe murderer? And then wouldn't it be so funny if you're like, yeah, I'm an actor, so I can get away with this, even though you're like a community theater actor? No, I'm not. No, nothing against community theater actors.
Yeah, she meant that sincerely. Like, yeah, and they thought I could get away with this because
I'm in community theater, so
which is the highest theater when you really think about it.
Yeah, and even if you don't think about it at all. So, yeah, and he was doing like a really hilarious performance in his interrogation.
So funny.
I know. Like, too bad they're actually talking about a dead person.
It's kind of great that they're also like.
It was so funny when he's
obviously it's not great for the dead person. Like that's the only thing. It's like, yes, someone did die, but it's so serious, and then it becomes so silly.
Yeah, and he literally word for word said, "Okay, I saw her. Is that what you want to hear, or is that what you want me to say?" Or something like that. And they're like, "No." It's like. It's really good.
Wow.
It's really good. And his girlfriend's a dick. And I think she's also going to go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
So far, he is the one. I'm at the very beginning of it.
What's it called?
Sleuth.
Yeah. Sleuth.
And interestingly, the narrator is very heavy-handed. Mm-hmm. Like she's just dripping with opinions, and like she can't sound professional for the life of herself. Okay. So she's also a little bit like a bad actor. It's great. It's really good. That red one.
iHeartRadio. Wow. Oh, it's Phantom of the Opera?
No.
Oh.
It's a real life Phantom
like
of the Opera.
A real life Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, in that there's dead people.
Right.
He did it like between shows. I can't even. The idea of like a 2-show day in community theater and like a fucking murder is so.
Did he plan it? Was he like?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I have time.
I think so, yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I can't tell. He seems to be not quite older.
Wait, and his girlfriend's a former Disney princess?
Yes.
Oh my god.
And she is not that cool of a person.
No.
So far. He's like, baby. From jail. He's like, hey, are you sitting down? I need to tell you something. She's like, you do realize this call's recorded, right? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, so this is like, you're like such an idiot right now. It's very weird. You do realize this call is recorded and you're an idiot for trying to lie right now.
Mm-hmm.
She's really intense. And he's like, yeah, but they can't find the. It's almost like they're not for real, except that they were for real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it really sounds, all of it sounds very weird and made up.
No. So this sounds so opposite of me now, right? I was gonna be like, I love people who are fake.
You do?
It's
There's
so
a couple
funny to me. Like, do they realize? Do they see themselves?
Have you seen The Rachel Divide? Okay, you should see that, and you should see The Woman Who Wasn't There. They're both documentaries about people who are like making some shit up, and it's very confusing. And The Imposter. The Imposter is really weird if anyone hasn't seen it. It's a documentary with like narrative. It's kind of old. I mean, it's not that old. I just mean in the like true crime documentary era, it's on the older side.
Yeah.
But not like Thin Blue Line. Thin Red Line? What color is the line? The thin line? The Werner Herzog thing?
Thin. Wait. Because there's both. No, wait. Thin blue line is a phrase, right? It refers. It's thin.
It refers to what?
Yeah. It's thin red line.
Anyway, yeah.
No, wait. Werner Herzog? No. Thin red line. Wait. Thin red line is Terrence Malick.
No. I mean, I believe you, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Then. What am I talking about?
No, I think, yeah.
No, I think
Thin Blue Line is this what you mean? The 1988 American documentary by Errol Morris?
Oh, Errol Morris, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Errol Morris.
Oh, Errol Morris. Oh. Anyway, The Imposter is really fun.
Oh, sounds great.
It's like this creepy story. You want to hear it?
Yeah. And then let's read. Okay.
It's this creepy fucking story about this guy who's like a grifter in Paris or something. And he randomly hears about some American kid who went missing like years ago or some shit. And he like very weirdly calls into the cops or Interpol or like somebody, and it's like, I'm that kid. They tell it a little better than I'm telling it right now. But so this guy, he's got like dark hair and he just like bleaches it or something like very, this is weird.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, little so-and-so has been found in France. And there's this whole thing. They like go to meet him and bring him home. And he's like any second is like, this is not gonna happen. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And the mother and the sister like come to reunite with him. And I'm like, like obsessed with him. Not obsessed with him, but like I was so happy to see him. They take him back. There used to be this show called Hard Copy. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
It's this American show that's like a little bit like Dateline, except trashy. And they did a whole story about how this boy was back in his hometown. He like goes back with his family to wherever this fucking kid is from,
Yeah.
some like smallish town, and everyone's like so thrilled, and it just like starts to get weirder and weirder. And I'm spoiling.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay. So it gets weirder and weirder, and then how do you?
Can I? I don't know if I.
You can spoil it. Spoiler! Stop
Spoiler.
listening if you want to watch
If
this.
you want to watch The Imposter, which you should.
Yeah.
So it's this really weird thing because the like line starts to skew from him being trying to get one over on them to them embracing him to the point where he starts to be like, wait. He goes from being like, they're gonna figure me out at any second that I'm not this kid. French accent.
How did they not get it?
So
Yeah.
it becomes more and more obvious that it's really weird that they're not getting it.
Yeah.
So he's like starts to think that they have some stake in him being found.
Right.
So it starts to like fucking shift from him being this guy who's trying to get one over on them to him being like, what are they hiding?
Yeah.
And basically implies that they get killed. It's really good. That one's really good.
Yeah.
And it would have been way better if I hadn't spoiled it. Because a lot of it is like the point of view shift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's read War and Peace.
Let's! Because the war has been the last line
that's
that
right.
we read.
I think this is going to be an exciting read.
Definitely. Because the last line from last night was, the game had begun. Watch us like go to the other side of the country.
I know, it's like, and now back in Moscow, they said some French things, and then they shouldn't have. I'm just grabbing a liqueur.
Excuse me. She's like the taskmaster over here. She's like, we gotta read. Let's get to reading.
But
Ready, 3, 2, 1, and then
I disappear. Okay. All right.
This is book 10, chapter 30. On returning to Gorky, after having seen Prince Andrew, Pierre ordered his groom to get the horses ready and to call him early in the morning, and then immediately fell asleep behind a partition in a corner Boris had given up to him.
Before he was thoroughly awake next morning, everybody had already left the hut. The panes were rattling in the little windows, and his groom was shaking him.
Your Excellency! Your Excellency! Your Excellency! He kept repeating, but tenaciously. While he shook Pierre by the shoulder without looking at him, having apparently lost hope of getting him to wake up.
What? Has it begun? Is it time? Pierre asked, waking up.
Hear the firing? Said the groom, a discharged soldier. All the gentlemen have gone out, and His Serene Highness himself rode past long ago.
Pierre dressed hastily and ran out to the porch. Outside, all was bright, fresh, dewy, and cheerful. The sun, just bursting forth from behind a cloud that had concealed it, was shining, with rays still half broken by the clouds, over the roofs of the street opposite, on the dew-besprinkled dust of the road, on the walls of the houses, on the windows, the fence, and on Pierre's horses standing before the hut. The roar of guns sounded more distinct outside. An adjutant accompanied by a Cossack passed by at a sharp trot.
It's time, Count! It's time! Cried the adjutant.
Telling the groom to follow him with the horses, Pierre went down the street to the knoll from which he had looked at the field of battle the day before. A crowd of military men were assembled there. Members of the staff could be heard conversing in French, and Kutuzov's gray head in a white cap with a red band, was visible. His gray nape sunk between his shoulders. He was looking through
Pierre's. He was like,
He was looking through a field glass down the high road before him.
Mounting the steps to the knoll, Pierre looked at the scene before him, spellbound by beauty. It was the same panorama he had admired from that spot the day before, but now the whole place was full of troops and covered by smoke clouds from the guns and the slanting rays of the bright sun rising slightly to the left behind Pierre. cast upon it through the clear morning air, penetrating streaks of rosy, gold-tinted light and long dark shadows. The forest at the farthest extremity of the paranoia what? Of the panorama seemed carved in some precious stone of a yellowish green color. Its undulating outline was silhouetted against the horizon and was pierced beyond Veluevo by the Smolensk highroad crowded with troops. Nearer at hand glittered golden cornfields interspersed with copses. There were troops to be seen everywhere, in front and to the right and the left. All this was vivid, majestic, and unexpected, but what impressed Pierre most of all was the view of the battlefield itself, of Borodino, and the hollows on both sides of the Kolocha.
Above the Kolocha, in Borodino, and on both sides of it, especially to the left, where the Voina flowing between its marshy banks fell into the Kolocha, a mist had spread which seemed to melt, to dissolve, and to become translucent when the brilliant sun appeared and magically colored and outlined everything. The smoke of the guns mingled with this mist, and over the whole expanse and through that mist the rays of the morning sun were reflected, flashing back like lightning from the water, from the dew, and from the bayonets of the troops crowded together by the river banks and in Borodino. A white church could be seen through the mist, and here and there the roofs of huts in Borodino, as well as dense masses of soldiers or green ammunition chests and ordnance. And all this moved, or seemed to move, as the smoke and mist spread out over the whole space. Just as in the mist enveloped hollow near Borodino, so along the entire line outside and above it, and especially in the woods and fields to the left, in the valleys and on the summits of the high ground, clouds of powder smoke seemed continually to spring up out of nothing, now singly, now several at a time, some translucent, others dense, which, swelling, growing, rolling, and blending, extended over the whole expanse.
These puffs of smoke, and strange to say, the sound of the firing, produced the chief beauty of the spectacle.
Puff! Suddenly, a round, compact cloud of smoke was seen merging from violet into gray and milky white, and boom came the report a second later.
Poof! Poof! And two clouds rose, pushing one another and blending together, and boom! Boom! Came the sounds, confirming what the eye had seen.
Pierre glanced round at the first cloud, which he had seen as a round, compact ball, and in its place already were balloons of smoke floating to one side, and poof, with a pause, poof, poof. 3 and then 4 more appeared, and then from each, with the same interval, boom, 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 came the fine, firm, precise sounds in reply. It seemed to him as if those smoke clouds sometimes ran and sometimes stood still, while woods, fields, and glittering bayonets ran past them. From the left, over fields and bushes, those large balls of smoke were continually appearing, followed by their solemn reports, while nearer still, in the hollows and woods, there burst from the muskets small cloudlets that had no time to become balls, but had their little echoes in just the same way. Chuck-a-ta-ta-chuck, tuck, chuck-ta-ta-tuck, I don't know, came the frequent crackle of musketry, but it was irregular and feeble in comparison with the reports of the cannon.
Pierre wished to be there with that smoke, those shining bayonets, that movement, and those sounds. He turned to look at Kutuzov and his suite to compare his impressions with those of others. They were all looking at the field of battle as he was, and as it seemed to him, with the same feelings. All their faces were now shining with that latent warmth of feeling Pierre had noticed the day before, and had fully understood after his talk with Prince Andrew.
Go, my dear fellow, go. And Christ be with you, Kutuzov was saying to a general who stood beside him, not taking his eye from the battlefield.
Having received this order, the general passed by Pierre on his way down the knoll.
To the crossing, said the general coldly and sternly in reply to one of the staff, who asked where he was going.
I'll go there too. I too, thought Pierre, and followed the general.
The general mounted a horse, a Cossack. I'll go too.
I too.
The general mounted a horse a Cossack had brought him. Pierre went to his groom, who was holding his horses, and asked which was the quietest, clambered onto it, seized it by the mane, and turning out his toes, pressed his heel against its sides, and feeling that his spectacles were slipping off, but unable to let go of the mane and reins, he galloped after the general, causing the staff officers to smile as they watched him from the knoll.
They're like, cool, we just stole a horse.
No, I think they're like, what a fool.
Enjoy your lost ride.
Pretty much.
Chapter 31. Having descended the hill, the general after whom Pierre was galloping turned sharply to the left, and Pierre, losing sight of him, galloped in among some ranks of infantry marching ahead of him. He tried to pass either in front of them or to the right or left, but there were soldiers everywhere, all with the same preoccupied expression and busy with some unseen but evidently important task. They all gazed with the same dissatisfied and inquiring expression at this stout man in a white hat who, for some unknown reason, threatened to trample them underneath his horse's hoofs.
Why ride into the middle of the battalion? One of them shouted at him.
Another prodded his horse with the butt end of a musket, and Pierre, bending over his saddle bow and hardly able to control his shying horse, galloped ahead of the soldiers where there was free space.
There was a bridge ahead of him where other soldiers stood firing. Pierre rode up to them. Without being aware of it, he had come to the bridge across the Kolocha between Gorky and Borodino, which the French, having occupied Borodino, were attacking in the first phase of the battle. Pierre saw that there was a bridge in front of him, and that soldiers were doing something on both sides of it, and in the meadow, among the rows of new mown hay, which he had taken no notice of amid the smoke of the campfires the day before, but despite the incessant firing going on there, he had no idea that this was the field of battle. He did not notice the sound of the bullets whistling from every side, or the projectiles that flew over him, did not see the enemy on the other side of the river, and for a long time did not notice the killed and wounded, though many fell near him. He looked about him with a smile which did not leave his face.
He's coming, dude. Why is that fellow in front of the line? Shouted somebody at him again.
To the left! Keep to the right! The men shouted to him.
Pierre went to the right and unexpectedly encountered one of Raevski's adjutants whom he knew. The adjutant looked angrily at him, evidently also intending to shout at him, but on recognizing him, he nodded.
How have you got here? He said and galloped on.
Pierre, feeling out of place there, having nothing to do and afraid of getting in someone's way, again, galloped after the adjutant. He's just freaking pulling people.
Oh, what's happening here? May I come with you? He asked.
He wants to pet the rabbit. One moment, replied the adjutant, and riding up to a stout colonel who was standing in the meadow, he gave some message and then addressed Pierre.
Why have you come here, Count? He asked with a smile. Still inquisitive?
Yes, assented Pierre.
Oh, Pierre. But the adjutant turned his horse about and rode on.
Here it's tolerable, just kidding, said he. But with Bagration on the left flank, they're getting it frightfully hot.
Really, said Pierre. Where is that?
Come along with me to our knoll. We can get a view from there, and in our battery it is still bearable, said the adjutant. Will you come?
Yes, I'll come with you, replied Pierre, looking around for his groom.
This is very Indian. Like, in India, you don't have to be invited to a wedding to go. Meaning, it's probably not that cool if you literally know no one who's going.
Yeah.
But somebody it's just like we're going to a bar.
Oh, yeah.
It's that same amount of...
Oh.
There's a plan, yes, and there's people.
Yeah.
But sure. And you also can show up at people's houses, like, without telling them you're coming.
Yeah.
So there's all these, like, cultural differences, right? And Indians are also, like, very disorderly when it comes to certain things. Like, anytime there's a queue, like, someone will be fucking with the queue. And people just kind of like rush at things, and not in an aggressive way, just in a very like disorganized, like no one cares.
Yeah.
And that's what this is like. Like the idea of you being able to just tag along, like in any situation with anyone in a theoretically organized situation like this is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine this being? You could just like follow some general into the
like.
But
it's so obvious that he shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, what's happening?
But everyone seems to be like,
come along, let's go to our knoll.
Right. Or if anything, slightly annoyed, but they're not like, get this motherfucker out of here. What is happening?
Yeah. which is what I would think because
It's crazy.
lives are at stake.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't like if he was like entering. I know it's not that dramatic, or it is that dramatic. If he like wandered into an operation room, he's like, "What's happening over here?"
They're like,
To the left, to the left. Want to hold the scalpel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or be like, you're a little too close. Do you mind just scooting over a little bit? Why is he behind the line? Why is he in front of the line? This guy. It was only now that he noticed wounded men staggering along, Jesus, or being carried on stretchers. On that very meadow he had ridden over the day before, a soldier was lying athwart the rows of scented hay with his head thrown awkwardly back and his shako off.
Why haven't they carried him away? Pierre was about to ask. But seeing the stern expression of the adjutant, who was also looking that way, he checked himself.
Pierre did not find his groom and rode along the hollow with the adjutant to Raevski's redoubt. His horse lagged behind the adjutant's and jolted him at every step.
You don't seem to be used to riding, Count, remarked the adjutant.
No, it's not that, but her action seems so jerky, said Pierre in a puzzled tone.
Right. She's wounded, said the adjutant. In the off foreleg above the knee, a bullet, no doubt. I congratulate you, Count, on your baptism of fire.
Having ridden in this, it's horrible. Having ridden in the smoke past the 6th Corps, behind the artillery which had been moved forward and was in action, deafening them with the noise of firing, they came to a small wood. There it was cool and quiet, with a scent of autumn. Pierre and the adjutant dismounted and walked up the hill on foot.
Is the general here? Asked the adjutant on reaching the knoll.
He was here a minute ago, but has just gone that way, someone told him, pointing to the right.
The adjutant looked at Pierre as if puzzled what to do with him now.
Don't trouble about me, said Pierre. I'll go up onto the knoll, if I may.
Yes, do. You'll see everything from there, and it's less dangerous, and I'll come for you.
Pierre went to the battery, and the adjutant rode on. They did not meet again, and only much later did Pierre learn that he lost an arm that day.
The knoll to which Pierre ascended was that famous one afterwards known to the Russians as the Knoll Battery, or Raevski's Redoubt, and to the French as La Grande Redoute, La Fatale Redoute, La Redoute du Centre, around which tens of thousands fell, and which the French regarded as the key to the whole position.
This redoubt consisted of a knoll on 3 sides of which trenches had been dug. Within the entrenchment stood 10 guns that were being fired through openings in the earthwork.
In line with the knoll on both sides stood other guns which also fired incessantly. A little behind the guns stood infantry. When ascending that knoll, Pierre had no notion that this spot, on which small trenches had been dug and from which a few guns were firing, was the most important point of the battle.
On the contrary, just because he happened to be there, he thought it one of the least significant parts of the field.
Having reached the knoll, Pierre sat down at one end of a trench surrounding the battery and gazed at what was going on around him with an unconsciously happy smile. Occasionally he rose and walked about the battery still with that same smile, trying not to obstruct the soldiers who were loading, hauling the guns, and continually running past him with bags and charges. The guns of that battery were being fired continually, one after another, with a deafening roar, enveloping the whole neighborhood in powder smoke.
In contrast with the dread felt by the infantrymen placed in support, here in the battery, where a small number of men busy at their work were separated from the rest by a trench, everyone experienced a common and, as it were, family feeling of animation.
The intrusion of Pierre's non-military figure in a white hat made an unpleasant impression at first. The soldiers looked askance at him with surprise and even alarm as they went past him. The senior artillery officer, a tall, long-legged, pock-marked man, moved over to Pierre as if to see the action of the farthest gun and looked at him with curiosity.
A young, round-faced officer, quite a boy still, and evidently only just out of the cadet college, who was zealously commanding the 2 guns entrusted to him, addressed Pierre sternly.
Sir, he said, permit me to ask you to stand aside. You must not be here.
The soldiers shook their heads disapprovingly as they looked at Pierre, but when they had convinced themselves that this man in the white hat was doing no harm, but either sat quietly on the slope of the trench with a shy smile or politely making way for the soldiers, paced up and down the battery under fire as calmly as if he were on a boulevard, their feeling of hostile distrust gradually began to change into a kindly and bantering sympathy, such as soldiers feel for their dogs, cocks, goats, and in general for the animals that live with the regiment. The men soon accepted Pierre into their family, adopted him, gave him a nickname, our gentleman, and made kindly fun of him amongst themselves.
So strange. A shell tore up the earth 2 paces from Pierre, and he looked around with a smile as he brushed from his clothes some earth it had thrown up.
And how's it you're not afraid, sir, really now? A red faced, broad shouldered soldier asked Pierre with a grin that disclosed a set of sound white teeth.
Are you afraid then? Said Pierre.
What else do you expect? Answered the soldier. She has no mercy, you know. When she comes spluttering down, out go your innards. One can't help being afraid, he said, laughing.
Several of the men with bright, kindly faces stopped beside Pierre. They seemed not to have expected him to talk like anybody else, and the discovery that he did so delighted them.
It's the business of us soldiers, but in a gentleman it's wonderful. There's a gentleman for you.
To your places, cried the young officer to the men gathered round Pierre.
The young officer was evidently exercising his duties for the first or second time, and therefore treated both his superiors and the men with great precision and formality.
The booming cannonade and the fusillade of musketry was growing more intense over the whole field, especially to the left where Bagratión's flèches were. But where Pierre was, the smoke of the firing made it almost impossible to distinguish anything. Moreover, his whole attention was engrossed by watching the family circle, separated from all else, formed by the men in the battery. His first unconscious feeling of joyful animation produced by the sights and sounds of the battlefield was now replaced by another, especially since he had seen that soldier lying alone in the hayfield. Now, seated on the slope of the trench, he observed the faces of those around him.
By 10 o'clock, some 20 men had already been carried away from the battery. 2 guns were smashed, and cannonballs fell more and more frequently on the battery, and spent bullets buzzed and whistled around. But the men in the battery seemed not to notice this, and merry voices and jokes were heard on all sides.
A live one, shouted a man as a whistling shell approached.
Not this way to the infantry, added another with loud laughter, seeing the shell fly past and fall into the ranks of the supports.
Are you bowing to a friend, eh? Remarked another, chaffing a peasant who ducked low as a cannonball flew over.
Several soldiers gathered by the wall of the trench, looking out to see what was happening in front.
They've withdrawn the front line. It has retired, said they, pointing over the earthwork.
Mind your own business, an old sergeant shouted at them. If they've retired, it's because there's work for them to do farther back.
And the sergeant, taking one of the men by the shoulders, right, gave him
Soldiers' shoulders,
gave him a shove with his knee. This was followed by a burst of laughter.
To the 5th gun, wheel it up, came shouts from one side.
Now then, all together like bargees. What's a bargees? Rose the merry voices of those who were moving the gun.
A bargeman.
Ah, yes. A bargee.
A batman, a bargeman. Okay. Oh, she nearly knocked our gentleman's hat off, cried the red-faced humorist, showing... My dad today was trying to think of Whoopi Goldberg's name.
Yeah.
And he called her a humorist. And I was like, where are you from?
A humorist?
Yeah, like this.
She's a humorist.
Yeah. Cried the
Could say
red-faced
that.
humorist, showing his teeth chafing. Pierre. Awkward baggage, he added reproachfully to a cannonball that struck a cannon wheel and a man's leg.
Now then, you foxes, said another, laughing at some militiamen who, stooping low, entered the battery to carry away the wounded man.
So this gruel isn't to your taste? Oh, you crows, you're scared, they shouted at the militiamen who stood hesitating before the man whose leg had been torn off.
There, lads, they mimic the peasants. They don't like it at all.
Pierre noticed that after every ball that hit the redoubt and after every loss, the liveliness increased more and more.
As the flames of the fire hidden within come more and more vividly and rapidly from an approaching thundercloud, so, as if in opposition to what was taking place, the lightning of hidden fire, growing more and more intense, glowed in the faces of these men.
Pierre did not look out at the battlefield and was not concerned to know what was happening there. He was entirely absorbed in watching this fire, which burned ever more brightly and which he felt was flaming up in the same way in his own soul.
At 10 o'clock, the infantry that had been among the bushes in front of the battery and along the Kamenka streamlet retreated. From the battery, they could be seen running back past it, carrying their wounded on their muskets. A general with his suite came to the battery, and after speaking to the colonel, gave Pierre an angry look, and went away again, having ordered the infantry supports behind the battery to lie down, so as to be less exposed to fire. After this, from amid the ranks of infantry to the right of the battery came the sound of a drum and shouts of command. And from the battery one saw how those ranks of infantry moved forward.
Sorry.
Pierre looked over the wall of the trench and was particularly struck by a pale young officer who, letting his sword hang down, was walking backwards and kept glancing uneasily around.
The ranks of the infantry disappeared amid the smoke, but their long-drawn shout and rapid musketry firing could still be heard. A few minutes later, crowds of wounded men and stretcher-bearers came back from that direction. Projectiles began to fall still more frequently in the battery. Several men were lying about. What is a battery? I know, now's a great time to ask.
I think it's a clump.
That's kind of what I figured, but
I think it's a clump of soldiers.
like it's a unit.
Yeah, like a cell, right? A gun emplacement. Artillery unit. Yeah.
It's an artillery unit. Okay. That's different.
Yeah.
Sure. Like I think because their guns, everything is so heavy. So they have like muskets and shit,
Yeah.
but it's not the same as their like big, I think, shelling and cannon equipment and stuff.
Mhm.
So they have to like park it somewhere. So they like strategically have to set up this large ass shit somewhere.
Right.
And then there's some maneuverability in the non-artillery units, but less maneuverability with the guns.
Right.
So I was just imagining that it was obviously a place with this kind of stuff with the equipment, but also a place that like needs to be protected then by the infantry because it's sort of like a strategic. It's like one of the support beams.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a piece.
Yeah.
Like a moving piece. That's what.
I don't think it moves.
No, or like it has a position.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like one of the fixed pieces.
Yeah.
I think. Who knows? Several men were lying about who had not been removed. Around the cannon, men moved still more briskly and busily. No one any longer took notice of Pierre. Once or twice he was shouted at for being in the way. The senior officer moved with big, rapid strides from one gun to another with a frowning face. The young officer, with his face still more flushed, commanded the men more scrupulously than ever. The soldiers handed up the charges, turned, loaded, and did their business with strange smartness. They gave little jumps as they walked, as though they were on springs.
The storm cloud had come upon them, and in every face the fire which Pierre had watched kindle burned up brightly. Pierre, standing beside the commanding officer, the young officer, his hand to his shako, ran up to his superior.
I have the honor to report, sir, that only 8 rounds are left. Are we to continue firing? He asked.
Grape shot, the senior shouted, without answering the question, looking over the wall of the trench.
Suddenly something happened. The young officer gave a gasp and, bending double, sat down on the ground like a bird shot on the wing. Everything became strange, confused, and misty in Pierre's eyes.
One cannonball after another whistled by and struck the earthwork, a soldier or a gun. Pierre, who had not noticed these sounds before, now heard nothing else. On the right of the battery, soldiers shouting, "Hurrah!" were running not forwards but backwards, it seemed to Pierre.
A cannonball struck the very end of the earthwork by which he was standing. Crumbling down the earth, a black ball flashed before his eyes, and at some instant plumped into something. Some militiamen who were entering the battery ran back.
"All with grape shot," shouted the officer.
The sergeant ran up to the officer and in a frightened whisper informed him, as a butler at dinner informs his master that there is no more of some wine asked for, that there were no more charges.
"Scoundrels, what are they doing?" shouted the officer, turning to Pierre.
The officer's face was red and perspiring, and his eyes glittered under his frowning brow.
"Run to the reserves and bring up the ammunition boxes," he yelled, angrily avoiding Pierre with his eyes and speaking to his men.
I'll go, said Pierre.
The officer, without answering him, strode across to the opposite side.
Don't fire, wait, he shouted.
The man who had been ordered to go for ammunition stumbled against Pierre.
Sir, this is no place for you, said he and ran down the slope.
Pierre ran after him, avoiding the spot where the young officer was sitting.
One cannonball, another, and a third flew over him, falling in front, beside, and behind him. Pierre ran down the slope. Where am I going? He suddenly asked himself when he was already near the green ammunition wagons. He halted irresolutely, not knowing whether to return or go on. Suddenly, a terrible concussion threw him backwards to the ground. At the same instant, he was dazzled by a great flash of flame, and immediately a deafening roar, crackling, and whistling made his ears tingle.
When he came to himself, he was sitting on the ground leaning on his hands. The ammunition wagons he had been approaching no longer existed. Only charred green boards and rags littered the scorched grass, and a horse, dangling fragments of its shaft behind it, galloped past, while another horse lay, like Pierre, on the ground, uttering prolonged and piercing cries.
Jesus. Chapter 32. Beside himself with terror, Pierre jumped up and ran back to the battery as to the only refuge from the horrors that surrounded him.
On entering the earthwork, he noticed that there were men doing something there, but that no shots were being fired from the battery. He had no time to realize who these men were. He saw the senior officer lying on the earth wall with his back turned as if he were examining something down below, and that one of the soldiers he had noticed before was struggling forward, shouting, "Brothers!" and trying to free himself from some men who were holding him by the arm. He also saw something else that was strange.
But he had not time to realize that the colonel had been killed, that the soldier shouting brothers was a prisoner, and that another man had been bayoneted in the back before his eyes. For hardly had he run into the redoubt before a thin, sallow-faced, perspiring man in a blue uniform rushed on him, sword in hand, shouting something. Instinctively guarding against the shock, for they had been running together at full speed before they saw one another, Pierre put out his hands and seized the man, a French officer, by the shoulder with one hand and by the throat with the other. The officer, dropping his sword, seized Pierre by the collar.
For some seconds they gazed with frightened eyes at one another's unfamiliar faces, and both were perplexed at what they had done and what they were to do next. Am I taken prisoner, or have I taken him prisoner? Each was thinking. But the French officer was evidently more inclined to think he had been taken prisoner, because Pierre's strong hand, impelled by instinctive fear, squeezed his throat ever tighter and tighter. The Frenchman was about to say something, when just above their heads, terrible and low, a cannonball whistled, and it seemed to Pierre that the French officer's head had been torn off, so swiftly had he ducked it.
Pierre too bent his head and let his hands fall. Without further thought as to who had taken whom prisoner, the Frenchman ran back to the battery, and Pierre ran down the slope, stumbling over the dead and wounded who, it seemed to him, caught at his feet. But before he reached the foot of the knoll, he was met by a dense crowd of Russian soldiers who, stumbling, tripping up, and shouting, ran merrily and wildly toward the battery. This was the attack for which Ermolov claimed the credit, declaring that only his courage and good luck made such a feat possible. It was the attack in which he was said to have thrown some St. George's crosses he had in his pocket into the battery for the first soldiers to take who got there.
The French who had occupied the battery fled, and our troops, shouting, "Hurrah!" pursued them so far beyond the battery that it was difficult to call them back.
The prisoners were brought down from the battery, and among them was a wounded French general, whom the officers surrounded. Crowds of wounded, some known to Pierre and some unknown, Russians and French, with faces distorted by suffering, walked, crawled, and were carried on stretchers from the battery. Pierre again went up onto the knoll where he had spent over an hour, and of that family circle which had received him as a member, he did not find a single one. There were many dead whom he did not know, but some he recognized. The young officer still sat in the same way, bent double in a pool of blood on the edge of the earth wall. The red-faced man was still twitching, but they did not carry him away.
Pierre ran down the slope once more.
Now they will stop it. Now they will be horrified at what they have done, he thought, aimlessly going toward a crowd of stretcher bearers moving from the battlefield. Who?
Now he's going to fall.
Seriously.
But behind the veil of smoke, the sun was still high, and in front, and especially to the left, near Semenovsk, something seemed to be seething in the smoke, and the roar of cannon and musketry did not diminish, but even increased to desperation, like a man who, straining himself, shrieks with all his remaining strength.
So this is Pierre's getting reunited with reality?
Yes, you know what I was thinking? Like, we take for granted all the movies that we've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess back then, I don't know how much they actually like know what happens at war. Like, can they actually visualize it? Can they actually know what it's like?
Can the people who are in
Like, can the people in the city, the people who've like never participated, do they actually understand what it's like to be at war?
probably about as much as we do,
Right.
which is not. But I have more of a concept of what it's like to be in this kind of a war than I do in the way war actually goes. Because for the longest time, I've had like recurring dreams for like much of my life where I find myself in a battle, and it's never like it's not like drones and shit.
Yeah.
It's not like tanks. It's like hand-to-hand combat.
Really?
Yes. And I'm a complete and total coward, which I think I probably should be.
Yeah.
Like there's actually not that much judgment in that. I said coward, but like it's not in the dream. It's not like, oh, what I really should do is be a soldier. That's
Right.
not like what's happening.
Yeah.
It's really like, oh shit, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah. How do we get?
So I've
That's
spent
so
much more
interesting.
time imagining this shit.
That's so interesting. Wow.
Which is interesting.
Just that you
Maybe
have that
like
recurring
watching.
dream and it's like close combat.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I'm always, and there's like this recurring aspect of it also. One recurring aspect of it is this, like, I know I'm not supposed to be there because I know I'm not a soldier, but it's like either no one else realizes or no one else cares or mostly no one else can do, like, there's too much going on.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like Pierre now running around being like, hey, so quick thing, I'm not a soldier.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? Where do I go?
Yeah.
And I think this is where I have many of my like imaginings about how I would be in a zombie apocalypse, like are extrapolated from my these dreams. So when Sarah would be like, oh, I don't know. Like, I think I would definitely look for a hole and crawl into it.
It's probably a really, really smart thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, part of me like has judgment about it, and part of me doesn't. Although in those movies, there's always this thing of like, we've got to keep moving, and that would really stress me out because I don't think I feel very secure when I keep moving. You don't get to know any conditions of a place.
You're like, where are we going to? Like,
Yes,
at least
and
like,
every
we
place
know,
is a new place.
Right, exactly. We know. It's like the fear you don't know.
Yeah,
is worse than the one you do. Yeah.
But then, like in hurricanes and crazy shit like that, a lot of people are like, "We need to get out of here," and then the dumbasses are the ones who like stay in their houses. But I feel like if there was a zombie apocalypse, what
is it really like that?
Is what really like what?
Like, or is that like aren't the ones who stay in their houses the smart ones?
It depends on what it is. Yeah. Because if it's a weather event, then it's arguable that if people are saying like you should get out of town, it's arguable that the best thing to do is get out of town. And those people who are like, no, we will protect our property or whatever. I also listened to a podcast not long ago about some really large fire, this like bushfire in Australia that ended up like catching a bunch of people's farms and shit on fire. And there was a surprising number of people who were like going to defend their farm, and I get it because it's like their whole livelihood and what the fuck are you going to do without it? But a lot of people died, in part because they were trying to save like their homes and their homes. Reminded me of the Malibu fires. And making that decision of like, okay, I guess I'm gonna stay and protect the house. And do you want to read more? Or?
Yeah, let's keep reading. I do think this is very smart what he's doing.
What who's doing?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, you do now, do you?
Well, because like the way that he keeps pointing out, like, oh, by the way, like this is the battle and this is the place. Da-da-da. Like he's pointing to kind of like the after of it, like how this will be remembered, like from a much from like a bird's eye view, in that kind of like dry historical way. But then we're like on the ground with it, with the character who has no fucking clue what's going on whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that too. He does that a little bit, like even I've noticed it in other places of like pointing out moments that characters are going to remember for a long time. Have you noticed that?
He points out the
Yeah, like he's a couple of times pointed out moments or gestures or like flashes basically that the involved characters will remember for a long time afterwards. And that always was sort of a similar thing to me because in the moment you don't know this is a moment that you don't. There's nothing about this moment really that's gonna stick with you, but then you have these like flashes that remain in your memory forever, even ones that have no necessarily special significance. So I thought that was always interesting when he did that. Sort of a similar,
you're right.
similar treatment.
Yeah, it's like outside.
Yeah.
Chapter 33.
Yay!
The chief action of the Battle of Borodino was fought within the 7,000 feet between Borodino and Bagratian's flèches. Beyond that space there was, on the one side, a demonstration made by the Russians with Uvarov's cavalry at midday, and on the other side, beyond Utitsa, Poniatowski's collision with Tuchkov. But these two were detached and feeble actions in comparison with what took place in the center of the battlefield. On the field between Borodino and the flèches, beside the wood, the chief action of the day took place on an open space, visible from both sides, and was fought in the simplest and most artless way.
The battle began on both sides with a cannonade from several hundred guns.
Then, when the whole field was covered with smoke, two divisions, Campans and Desaites, advanced from the French right, while Murat's troops advanced on Borodino from their left.
Who's left? I guess one. The French right.
I think that's all
would
the
be
French.
The French's right.
Right?
Oh,
I think that's all
good
the
point.
French. Yeah.
Good point. But where did they advance if not on Borodino? I think I need to start trying to figure this out. From the Shevardino redoubt, where Napoleon was standing, the flèches were 2/3 of a mile away, and it was more than a mile as the crow flies to Borodino, so that Napoleon could not see what was happening there, especially as the smoke mingling with the mist hid the whole locality. That must be so stressful.
It's not
Being-
able to see.
Being in charge of something and like not being able to see what's happening. Hid the whole locality. The soldiers of Desaix's division, advancing against the flèches, could only be seen till they had entered the hollow that lay between them and the flèches. As soon as they had descended into that hollow, the smoke of the guns and musketry on the flèches grew so dense that it covered the whole approach on that side of it. Through the smoke, glimpses could be caught of something black, probably men, and at times the glint of bayonets. But whether they were moving or stationary, whether they were French or Russian, could not be discovered from the Shevardino redoubt.
The sun had risen brightly, and its slanting rays struck straight into Napoleon's face as, shading his eyes with his hand, he looked at the flèches. The smoke spread out before them, and at times it looked as if the smoke were moving, at times as if the troops moved. Sometimes shouts were heard through the firing, but it was impossible to tell what was being done there.
Napoleon, standing on the knoll, looked through a field glass, and in its small circlet saw smoke and men, sometimes his own and sometimes Russian, but when he looked again with the naked eye, he could not tell what where what he had seen was.
He descended.
That's so stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine being like, okay, I can finally see, but and then when you're like, I don't know where it is.
Yeah, he should be used to it by now.
I know, but this whole thing is stressful. Like, I just mean like, I'm not social.
He descended the knoll and began walking up and down before it.
Also, sorry, this is such like it makes you think so much about how, first of all, warfare is so different now.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Like, you have to see. You have to be able to see here. And I was just thinking, like, okay, so what would you do if you were over here and there was like a shit ton of smoke and you were like, I need to know what's happening there. The best thing you could do is like send someone or like relay something. But then, like, that person may never come back out.
Yeah.
And then what? At what point do you decide, oh, I think my messaging thing might have failed? Send another. It's so crazy that you need to actually, with your eyeballs, see things. And that is so irrelevant today. And right now, our entire lives, by being stuck where we are, imagine if we only had what they had. Like, now everything about warfare is done with cameras and computers and drones and electrical engineering. And they don't have very much of
They
that.
just have messengers and
Just have like
it's
people
so
and
chaotic.
items.
Yeah, how do they know where anything is? How do you even send a message? Because it's like they get there and the guy's dead or gone, or you get lost in the fucking smoke or something. Yeah,
it's it's a little bit. If anyone really thought through it, it would be a little bit nuts to think that, for example, Napoleon or any one person could possibly be in charge of all this shit, because it seems like it's a little bit more like you train a bunch of people and then are like, okay, good luck. Like, I'm not going to be there with you. Because, like, when are you
once it starts, like, even if you do make, obviously, like, people are still making orders.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like, once it starts, it's, who the hell knows if your orders are going to be carried out.
Yeah, you don't know anything. This is one of the things that I really don't like about, like, Braveheart type movies, or even the Lord of the Rings. I think I've said this before. I'm always really annoyed by the fact that they act like everybody can hear the one guy.
Yeah, we talked about that, which I think is so funny.
And it's not just like a little minor annoyance / hilarious thing that, like, why are those guys pretending to hear what this person's saying? It's not just that. It's like that. This is actually how it is. Like, you have to deal with sound and how sound works.
Right.
So, like, Napoleon cannot be addressing. Like, Aragon cannot be fucking addressing the army. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
You can only address, like, a very small group of people with no microphones and no, like.
People never thought of that.
Nobody ever thinks about it.
Yeah.
But it's like a managerial nightmare. An army.
I love that you're like, you have to deal with sound. It makes me think of, people have pointed out that in Star Wars,
Yeah, there's no sound in space.
There's no sound in space. So you would be, what would actually happen, unless they've added the sound, unless like these spaceships have added the sound for you, is you would fire at something, the ship would blow up, and it would be dead quiet.
Yeah.
Which would be so different and eerie.
Very.
Yeah.
Very. But that's kind of one of those things that, at least historically, it's been sort of ignored. Like, yeah, there's no sound in space, but we'll make it the movie here. In the same way, it's like Aragorn has to give this, like, stirring speech. And Sabine Aragorn, for, like, literally, there's so many movies where this happens.
Yeah.
You know, where they, like, are walking up and down the front line as if it means something.
Yeah.
But actually, I think it's more like being like, okay, now I can see this, but then the second you put it down, you're like, I don't know where I was looking just now.
You still have to give the speech, though. Right?
I'm not sure.
you kind of don't need to know what's being said. You're like, yeah, there's my general, and everyone else is cheering, and you're like, yeah.
But like, haven't you ever been in a crowd situation where you're like, I can't tell what's happening? Like, this happens to me a lot because I'm short and I don't know. But when the whole crowd starts to cheer, it doesn't make me be like, ah, like without knowing what's happening. It makes me
Even
feel like,
concerts can feel like that.
I mean, I know that at war you're supposed to get excited. Like, it's not unclear what the vibe they're trying to elicit is.
I think what would fill it in for me is like, I know what's happening. Like, we're going to war. And
Right.
so regardless of what he's saying, if I need to be revved up, I'll add in the details. I'll rev myself.
Yeah, except
Maybe.
just like next time we watch Lord of the Rings,
Yeah,
or
yeah. No, I
like,
think
just
we should.
notice how far away some of those people.
Oh, I'm sure they have no idea.
Like, there's not even.
Like, it's like
They
a
don't
broken
even know
telephone.
someone's talking.
So, and then it goes down there.
Well, that's what, like, there are relay calls like that.
Yeah.
Where someone's like, "Da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da," like those echoed, because of shit like this. I can't even schedule my week. Like, in life, it's difficult for me to schedule several appointments. I cannot. If you know those people who are stage managers, like, I don't know, or like scripties,
Yeah.
what's going on with those people? That's who you have to be okay with what's going on. Because this level of chaos is, to me, it's incapacitatingly anxiety inducing. Like, I would just lie down and fucking die.
I think some people thrive. They're like, ha 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 ha. That's right. We don't know what's happening. Isn't life exciting?
Yeah, I don't know if I have that in me. Like, especially if people are dying, I don't know that I would have that. I don't know. You never know. You never know how you're going to be unless you're there.
That'd be spaced out.
You'd be
my thing.
really funny. I don't know what you. I think you'd be doing what Pierre's doing.
I think so too. Hey guys. Oh, sorry. Is it okay if I'm here?
Is it okay if I'm here? My thing is the opposite. It's like, guys, does anybody notice I'm here? Like, get me out of here. I don't mean to bother you, but I'm here.
That might not be useful either.
No, I never said I would be more useful ever. I think it would be a hot mess. I would be a hot mess. This is also why, like, I don't know if I could ever have kids. That's like very worrisome.
Guys, I'm here.
Yeah.
I just feel like, what have I done? I think you would have those moments a lot. No, but you don't have regret. I don't know that.
I don't know. It makes me malfunction. Let's just read the book.
Okay, got. Where were we?
He descended. I think you were talking about.
Okay.
He descended the knoll.
He descended the knoll and began walking up and down before it.
Occasionally he stopped, listened to the firing, and gazed intently at the battlefield.
But not only was it impossible to make out what was happening from where he was standing down below or from the knoll above on which some of the generals had taken their stand, but even from the flèches themselves, in which by this time there were now Russian and now French soldiers, alternately or together, dead, wounded, alive, frightened, or maddened. Even at those flèches themselves, it was impossible to make out what was taking place. There for several hours, amid incessant cannon and musketry fire, now Russians were seen alone, now Frenchmen alone, now infantry, and now cavalry. They appeared, fired, fell, collided, not knowing what to do with one another, screamed and ran back again.
From the battlefield adjutants he had sent out. Okay, so these are the people who like try to figure out what's going on.
Right.
And orderlies from his marshals kept galloping up to Napoleon with reports of the progress of the action. But all these reports were false, both because it was impossible in the heat of battle to say what was happening at any given moment, and because many of the adjutants did not go to the actual place of conflict, but reported what they had heard from others. And also because while an adjutant was riding more than a mile to Napoleon, circumstances changed and the news he brought had already become false. Thus, an adjutant galloped up from Murat with tidings that Borodino had been occupied and the bridge over the Kalocha was in the hands of the French. The adjutant asked whether Napoleon wished the troops to cross it. This is insane. Napoleon gave orders that the troops should form up on the farther side and wait. But before that order was given, almost as soon, in fact, as the adjutant had left Borodino, the bridge had been retaken by the Russians and burnt, in the very skirmish at which Pierre had been present at the beginning of the battle.
An adjutant galloped up from the flèches with a pale and frightened face and reported to Napoleon that their attack had been repulsed. Campan wounded and Devout killed, yet at the very time the adjutant had been told that the French had been repulsed, the flèches had in fact been recaptured by other French troops, and Davout was alive and only slightly bruised. On the basis of these necessarily untrustworthy reports, Napoleon gave his orders, which had either been executed before he gave them or could not be, and were not executed.
The marshals and generals, who were nearer to the field of battle but, like Napoleon, did not take part in the actual fighting and only occasionally went within musket range, made their own arrangements without asking Napoleon and issued orders where and in what direction to fire and where cavalry should gallop and infantry should run. But even their orders, like Napoleon's, were seldom carried out, and then but partially. For the most part, things happened contrary to their orders. Soldiers ordered to advance ran back on meeting grape shot. Soldiers ordered to remain where they were, suddenly seeing Russians unexpectedly before them, sometimes rushed back and sometimes forward, and the cavalry dashed without orders in pursuit of the flying Russians. In this way, 2 cavalry regiments galloped through the Semenovsk hollow, and as soon as they reached the top of the incline, turned round and galloped full speed back again. The infantry moved in the same way, sometimes running to quite other places than those they were ordered to go. All orders, can you believe that infantry used to have to run everywhere?
I'm so tired.
Oh my god, they're like soccer players with weapons. All orders as to where and when to move the guns, when to send infantry to shoot, or horsemen to ride down the Russian infantry. All such orders were given by the officers on the spot nearest to the units concerned, without asking either Ney, Davout, or Murat, much less Napoleon. They did not fear getting into trouble for not fulfilling orders or for acting on their own initiative, for in battle what is at stake is what is dearest to man, his own life, and it sometimes seems that safety lies in running back, sometimes in running forward, and these men, who were right in the heat of the battle, acted according to the mood of the moment. In reality, however, all these movements, forward and backward, did not improve or alter the position of the troops. All their rushing and galloping at one another did little harm. The harm of disablement and death was caused by the balls and bullets that flew over the fields on which these men were floundering about. As soon as they left the place where the balls and bullets were flying about, their superiors, located in the background, reformed them and brought them under discipline, and under the influence of that discipline, led them back to the zone of fire, where under the influence of fear of death, they lost their discipline and rushed about according to the chance promptings of the throng. This makes me feel so much better.
Yeah?
In a weird way.
Really?
Yeah, because I have, again, like, I always think that, like, I would be malfunctioning.
Yeah.
But, like, within that assumption is this idea that everybody else knows what to do, or, like, everybody else has great clarity, or has, like, bravery that is complete, or, you know what I mean? Like, my thing is only what
Your
it
thing
is.
is other than
Yeah.
everyone else's.
Is only what it is because everybody else is something else.
Right.
And so this sounds like an army full of me.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, oh, I think like you running, like that's right. That's the correct instinct.
I think mine's more like hiding.
It's
So
hiding.
mine's
Yeah.
more like I need to find a good place that no one will notice that.
Yeah.
But I don't. There's not usually like cannonballs and stuff in mine. It's more like split up and swords. Yeah. So it's more like the less people I interface with, the better.
Yeah.
And that's the primary objective, rather than what if I stay in a place where something like this. Should we stop?
Avoiding conflict much? Everyone avoids conflict.
I don't know.
Who are those people who like rush into conflict? Who are like, yeah, you want to fight? Let's fight. Let's fight.
They exist.
No, what is going on there?
What is going on when you pick fights? With one person.
Yeah, I guess it's the same thing.
I think it's probably just that, but like
But-
a little different.
Everywhere.
I like this book. Yeah. It's a cluster. It's a cluster. It reminds me of Wim talking about how he never knows how to do anything.
Wim
Wim Hof, yeah.
like,
Remember I told you
yeah,
like,
how
the-
you're like, oh, he doesn't even know what experiments are being performed on him. They just wire him up.
He
and
kind
he's
of
like,
does.
Can I do that? We'll do that now.
yeah, he's like, no, I totally believe in this. It's the greatest. Because, and no, he does. Like, I said it in a way that made it sound like a lie, but he does.
Okay.
And then he like solicits science people to like look into what he is doing, and then like schedules it, and they're like, okay, so this is what we're gonna check. Like they like accept his invitation, and he's like, yeah, great, this is what I asked for, right? This is what I wanted, and then is like, what did I do? It has fully these moments of like, I don't know I don't know. But then he just ends up doing something. Like he does show up at the right time, at the right location, and just like gives himself a like chat and is like, all right.
Just himself a chat. Right, Wim.
Yeah, but I find it insanely comforting that somebody who can do like the craziest shit with his mind and body has no idea what he's doing. Like has full on things of like,
I was trying to think of it. I was like, oh yeah, athletes must be like that. It's kind of different because he's defying what we know that a human body can sustain.
yeah, he's like making a claim that's like potentially a bit. I mean, I think he doesn't think it's outlandish, obviously, because his like experiential and teaching and whatever, like he doesn't doubt it, but like there is doubt around what he's doing.
Yeah.
So I think he doubt like it does that doubt does penetrate the like actual world of doubt that he is operating in. Does like make its way into his thing sometimes, and he's like, wait, do I do anything? Do I have a what is it that I do? But then he has to just like tell himself that like he has a thing. He needs to do it. And whatever. It's just like I think that's a very rare look into. I think there's a documentary about Michael Jordan coming out really soon, and I'm super psyched about that. I think there's a lot of people who achieve levels of like excellence or something who I don't think talk that much about. I mean, you have said this before that in general you don't feel like you see a lot of people's work. Like you don't see the work, you see the products.
Yeah.
You see the like blooms, not the
Yeah, not the dirt, not the roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that's especially true with people who are very, 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 very skilled, like Kobe Bryant or whoever. So for him, like for Wim to say it is different than just like, a working athlete to say it.
Right.
Because he's like on some other level.
It's on some other level. Not that he's trained. Like he didn't start off as the Iceman.
No.
But there's also like what I think works so well with Wim is like it is kind of life versus death. Like he's under the ice in some of those situations. It kind of feels like he isn't afraid to die. I mean, I think he said that he like killed his fear of death because I think he got trapped under the ice in one moment.
Oh my god,
He couldn't figure out where the hole was.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
it was a horrifying story. His eyes froze. You couldn't see.
And yeah, he was like, "Oh, okay." And I think like he accepted it, and then he found the hole, And yeah, what I hear in that is he just kind of like gives himself over to whatever he's doing at any given time.
Yeah, and but that's I guess what people are talking about when they talking about surrender or letting go. And we had this conversation about what letting go means or whatever. Because that's while he's very like I'm a wolf man, he's also very about surrender. It's like
Yeah. So it's like at a certain point, like you're not the one doing it. Like your idea of yourself can only do so much. And when you let go, you're in that way like letting go of you doing the thing.
This is why I think religion is strength, a source of strength.
Yeah. I found it funny that it was religion because that I see as being I want to see that. I can see how you would get that from religion, but
that's all I know.
Religion seems like an umbrella where like you can understand that without ever having opened the Bible or whatever it is.
I got a little lost in that sentence, but no.
Like that there's like some rule, there's like some truth to that, to like surrender that religion points to, but you don't need religion to get there.
No, but it's a thing that a lot of people who have religion have.
Yeah.
It's like one of the good things about it.
It's not a short. No, but like it would probably be far easier to go through religion to get there, as opposed to maybe it wouldn't.
I don't know.
As opposed to like mucking around and finding your own way.
I don't know. Because I think at some unless you were really indoctrinated and don't even know what it's like to question something, I think that faith a lot of times is a choice. And a choice that you have to keep making. So whether you have it in this or in that, I don't know how much the difference is. I think there's very few people who don't ever question their faith.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those things that we think about people that's not actually true. Yeah. Like that they're, so and so is doing it effortlessly.
Yeah.
I think faith requires effort. So I wonder if being like giving it all up to Jesus or whatever, I don't know if that's easier than giving it all up to whatever Wim is giving it up to.
Yeah, it just seems like you could give it up to anything. And people do. That's what it seems like. Even if it is soccer or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why AA and stuff, I think that's why they call it a higher power. Because that's a very generic phrase, which could mean a lot of different things, and just means that it's got more than you've got.
Yeah.
So it can be something.
For some reason, like I never really understood the higher power until I like started thinking recently about free will.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, right, because like, right, there has to be a higher power. Like there most certainly is a higher power, whatever. Maybe I just don't like the phrasing of that because we're not choosing any of this. Like we're not choosing choice. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like who the hell knows why we choose what we choose? So even like at our moments of free will, like there's a higher power, whatever, guiding like when and why those moments are our moments. Not we're not on autopilot.
I think a lot of different things can take that shape. Or I think at least the idea of higher power is for it to take whatever shape you.
Why do you think people get so like pernicious about what you call it?
What do you mean?
So I think that's actually what people are talking about with God. And I have a difficult time talking about God because
Of the word?
of the word.
Mm-hmm.
I get very like no, I don't like it about I don't like God, I don't like the universe, I don't like the universe. I think that's inaccurate. I don't like higher power.
Okay.
Higher power. It sounds like superheroes.
Sounds like another level.
Yeah. Yeah. But maybe it doesn't like why the fuck doesn't why does it need to be something that fits? Why does the word have to fit?
Yeah. It can be any word.
The universe makes no sense.
I know why people say that.
Why?
No, like I know from a trying to look for a word place.
Do you have a word?
No, but I'm sure I've used God and I'm sure I've used the universe and I have never used higher power. But I use God with like usually couched in qualifiers. I'm sure I've used it in conversation.
Yeah.
And I think the universe comes from a couple of, like it fills a couple of different roles as a word.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it makes something plural rather than singular.
Mm-hmm.
And the universe is never ending, right? So it's also like an infinite and uncountable thing. That is useful. It refers to science. There's like a little nod to science. So it's like, okay, well, if you don't believe in a personified God, no problem, because we are just talking about the cosmic dance.
I think it's funny that we're like, okay, space. I think that space is scientific. Anyway.
Yeah.
Space isn't.
Well, that's more about
Space
your idea about science.
Science. Anyway.
Well,
Science
everything
can
is science.
like detect space, but that doesn't make space scientific. Anyway.
Space could be a scientific, what's it called? Distinction. Like solid and liquid is a sulfur and mercury is a scientific label.
For me, it always felt like the word should actually not be a noun.
What? God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should almost be like an adverb. It should be like universally or godly or yeah. It's like it's a thing that is or can be.
That's what I've. That's my personal thing and has been for many years.
Mm, yeah.
Is that it's more like a resonance sort of quality.
Mhm.
But yeah, the word does not matter. And the extent to which one gets caught up with language is that's always a very interesting thing to me, because obviously words are so important and language is so important, but it's also the kind of thing that you will be bound and gagged and left for dead in your closet if you fear words so much or try to control words so much that you like there has to be some amount of letting go with it.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons that I think that the whole labeling thing is so stupid. People go like, I don't like labels.
But it's like maybe the tools are crude, but if you need to light a fire, maybe pick up the tools.
Yeah, or freeze.
Yeah.
Like, what would you like to do? Do you want to still try to do this thing that we're doing, or do you not?
Right.
At some point, it's just I find like I love words, but also like they do not matter
Mm.
at the same time, and I think there has to be a little bit of both
Mm.
ways of engaging, I guess. Like the word is almost never the problem.
Yeah.
The word is almost never the problem. I sound like a crazy person. You're welcome.
The word is never the problem.
It's true.
No, it is true. I'm just gonna add on to that. Like, so and then I'm gonna go. But
You're gonna go?
you know how I'm always like, oh, I'm not getting this right, or like I'm not saying it right, and I worry so much about like having the right words for something
Mm-hmm.
or getting something across with the right language.
Mm-hmm.
And this strangely has to do with control too. I think there's like an exactitude that we wish we had with words,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like trusting that the thing underneath is what really will be conveyed.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there's some letting go of just like being willing to the like like get it out with whatever words, and also like have what's underneath be revealed. Did I explain that right? Like maybe the finickiness with the words is like a way to protect actually what's underneath. And because when you actually like experience it and know what you're talking about, it doesn't really matter if you have the words for it or not.
I think it's also really can be challenging to relinquish control of how words land.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the thing that like it's really easy to want to control how someone is hearing what you're saying.
Yeah. Right.
And that's one of those things that like there's a certain amount to which you can certainly influence what someone is getting from you.
Yeah.
But then after that point, it's like a gamble. There's
Totally.
nothing.
Yeah.
So there's some like efforting and then there's some like, and I think that that's one of the issues with labels is that people are afraid of what other people make the label mean, or what they make the label mean. But if if you are able to let go of that, I think people often forget that words are placeholders. They're signifiers. They're not the thing.
Mhm.
They signify the thing. Like the noun isn't the noun.
Right. Yeah, you can only really be concerned with labels if you buy into it.
Or if you're overly concerned with other people.
Yeah. But like what I mean by that is like if other people buy into it and you're not attached to it, like to what it means, it can't
Yeah.
hurt you. It really can't.
Yeah.
Them like thinking that you're a thing will have no. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway,
You get it.
you get it. Okay. Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.